Listen up. You guys won't believe what happened last night. Sleepover at Sarah's, right? Classic horror movie setup. Popcorn, scary stories, the whole shebang. Ben, Sarah's little brother, this annoying 6-year-old named Timmy, stumbles into the basement with a dusty box of VHS tapes. Now, remember, this is Sarah's grandparents' house, practically a museum of outdated tech. We're talking VCRs and cassette players collecting cobwebs. Timmy pulls out this one tape labeled Summer Camp, 1998 in faded marker. We all exchange, "Are you serious?" Looks, Summer Camp horror? Sign us up. Sarah pops the tape in, the VCR wheezing to life with a symphony of groans and hisses. The screen flickers to life, revealing a grainy shot of a sun-drenched camp entrance. Kids run around, counselors yell instructions, all the usual summer camp stuff. But something felt off. Like the smiles were a little too wide, the laughter a little too forced. As the footage progressed, the unease grew. The counselors started acting weird, disappearing for stretches of time. The kids seemed different. More subdued one moment, then darting around with frantic energy the next. The camera, jerky and handheld, kept panning towards the deep woods bordering the campgrounds. We could practically feel the dread dripping off the screen then. It happened. The camera focused on a group of kids huddled around a crackling campfire. They were chanting something in unison, a low murmur that sent shivers down our spines. We exchanged nervous glances in the flickering light of the basement. This wasn't a goofy summer camp movie anymore. This was creepy. Suddenly, the screen flickered again, and the image on the tape started to warp. The happy campers contorted into grotesque figures, their smiles replaced with rictus grins. The chanting intensified, morphing into a blood-curdling scream. Just as the scream reached its peak, the tape went dead. The VCR whirred to a stop, plunging the basement into darkness. Silence. Then, a single word escaped Sarah's lips. "Whoa." We all sat there, hearts pounding, trying to process what we just saw. But that's when things got really messed up. A twig snapped outside the window, followed by a low growl. We all froze, eyes darting around the dimly lit basement. The growl came again, closer this time. Panic surged through me. Grabbing a baseball bat from a dusty corner, I inched towards the window, the others huddled behind me. Peering outside, I saw nothing but the familiar shapes of Sarah's backyard. Just a raccoon, I told myself, trying to calm my racing heart. But then, a chilling voice whispered from the TV behind us. "We see you." We whipped around, but the screen was blank, except for a single flicker of static in the corner, forming a crude symbol that resembled an eye. Another voice, this one raspy and ancient, echoed from the speakers. "Join us." Camp Evergreen awaits. The basement lights flickered and died, plunging us into complete darkness. Screams erupted. Sarah, Emily, John, everyone. My own scream died in my throat as a cold hand clamped over my mouth. A high-pitched giggle filled the room, sending shivers down my spine. We were trapped. Something from the cursed tape was in the room with us. Blindly, I swung the baseball bat, connecting with something solid. A blood-curdling shriek followed, and the hand retreated. Scrambling back, I bumped into Sarah. "We gotta get out of here." She hissed, her voice trembling. We stumbled towards the basement door, pushing and shoving in our panic. Finally, it swung open, and we flooded out into the living room. The house was silent, the lights inexplicably back on. But the feeling of dread lingered, thick and oppressive. The cursed VHS tape lay on the floor by the VCR, the static eye symbol pulsing faintly on the screen. Just then, Emily pointed at the TV. A new message had formed within the static. A date, July 13th, and a location, Camp Evergreen, long since abandoned. We stared at the message, a cold understanding forming. The recording wasn't just cursed, it was a gateway. And the entity from the tape wouldn't stop until it claimed us all. There was no world-saving hero in this story, just a group of terrified teenagers facing a fate worse than any horror movie. On July 13th, we had to return to Camp Evergreen to break the curse and free ourselves from the clutches of the haunted tape. The next few weeks were a blur of frantic research and nervous anticipation. We devoured any information we could find about Camp Evergreen. News articles spoke of a mysterious fire that had shut down the camp in the late 90s. Rumors hinted at strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances. The date circled on the calendar loomed ever closer, a dark countdown to our potential doom. Sleep was a luxury we couldn't afford. We pored over old maps, trying to pinpoint the exact location of the camp. Sarah, surprisingly resourceful, managed to hack into the county archives, unearthing blueprints and schematics. Armed with this information, we meticulously planned our route, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. On July 13th, we piled into John's beat-up pickup truck, a nervous energy crackling in the air. The drive was long and silent, the abandoned highway leading us deeper into a desolate wilderness. As dusk settled, casting long shadows across the deserted road, we finally spotted it. A dilapidated wooden sign, half buried in overgrown foliage. Camp Evergreen. The camp itself was a chilling tableau of decay. Crumbling cabins with boarded-up windows, a skeletal jungle gym swallowed by weeds, the remnants of a charred campfire pit. An unsettling silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures in the tall grass. Following the map, we made our way towards the central lodge, the supposed location where the events on the tape unfolded. The air grew colder as we approached, a prickling sensation crawling up my skin. The lodge itself was a boarded-up monstrosity, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at us. Taking a deep breath, I gripped the crowbar Sarah had procured. With a collective grunt, we pried open the creaking front door, a wave of stale air and dust washing over us. Inside, the lodge was a wreck. Overturned furniture, cobwebs draping the walls like ghostly shrouds. A single flickering light bulb cast grotesque shadows that danced across the room. The air crackled with a strange energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. We crept deeper into the lodge, the silence broken only by our ragged breaths and the pounding of our hearts. Then, we found it, the room from the tape. The charred remains of a campfire lay in the center, surrounded by a circle of faded paint markings. The static eye symbol from the tape pulsated faintly on the floor, etched into the decaying wood. This was it, the source of the curse. A wave of nausea washed over me, the oppressive atmosphere threatening to suffocate me. Suddenly, the air grew frigid. A disembodied whisper echoed through the room, sending shivers down my spine. "Welcome back, campers." We spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the flickering light bulb and the oppressive silence. Panic clawed at my throat. This wasn't a physical entity we were facing, but something far more insidious. A malevolent spirit trapped within the recording. "You can't escape us," the voice hissed, slithering into our minds. Images from the tape flooded my vision. The distorted faces, the chilling screams. The entity was feeding off our fear, growing stronger with each terrified gasp. But then, Sarah stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady. "We're not afraid," she declared, her eyes blazing with defiance. "This isn't your game anymore." We may have been scared out of our minds, but a flicker of hope ignited within me. Sarah was right. Fear was what fueled the entity. We had to break free from its control. Following the blueprints, we discovered a hidden compartment within the lodge, a dusty archive room. Among the moldy files and cobweb-covered boxes, we found what we were looking for, a video camera and a blank VHS tape. The plan was audacious, bordering on insanity. We would recreate the final scene from the cursed tape, but with a twist. We would film ourselves defying the entity, breaking free from its control. It was a gamble, but our only hope. Setting up the camera, we huddled together in the center of the room, the static eye symbol pulsing ominously at our feet. Taking a deep breath, I held the camera, my hand trembling slightly. "We are not yours to control," Sarah began, her voice firm. One by one, we each spoke into the camera, our voices trembling with defiance but filled with a newfound resolve. "We reject your curse. This camp is no longer your prison." The flickering light bulb sputtered and died, plunging us into complete darkness. We squeezed our eyes shut, bracing for the entity's wrath. A cold wind whipped through the room, the stench of decay filling our nostrils. Then, a blood-curdling shriek tore through the silence, so loud it vibrated through our bones. We clung to each other, whimpers escaping our lips. But as quickly as it started, the shriek died down, replaced by an unsettling stillness. Tentatively, we opened our eyes. A faint, ethereal glow emanated from the static eye symbol on the floor. The air felt lighter, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a shroud. Slowly, the glow intensified, revealing a wispy figure taking shape above the symbol. It resembled a young camper, his face contorted in a mask of terror. The figure reached out a translucent hand, its touch sending a jolt of energy through the room. In that moment, a wave of understanding washed over me. This wasn't a malicious entity, but a lost soul trapped within the cursed recording, reliving his final moments on a loop. Sarah, ever the intuitive one, spoke first. "We're here to help you," she said softly, her voice filled with genuine empathy. "We can break the curse." The figure seemed to flicker, its expression morphing into one of confusion. We explained everything. The cursed tape, our encounter with the entity, and our plan to set him free. A flicker of hope seemed to ignite in the figure's eyes. He pointed a shaky finger towards the camera we had left recording. With a collective nod, we pressed play. As the scene unfolded on the small screen, the figure watched intently, reliving his own defiant act mirrored by us. When the recording ended, a wave of peace washed over the room. The figure began to fade, a gentle smile replacing the look of terror on his face. With a final, grateful nod in our direction, the figure dissolved into shimmering motes of light, leaving behind only the faint pulsating glow of the static eye symbol. The air grew warm, the oppressive atmosphere dissipating completely. We stood there in stunned silence, the weight of the experience settling on our shoulders. We had faced a supernatural horror and emerged, not as world-saving heroes, but as teenagers who had defied their fear and helped a lost soul find peace. As dawn broke over the desolate campgrounds, casting an ethereal light on the crumbling cabins, we knew this was a night we would never forget. We had cheated death, broken a curse, and in a way, found a strange kind of closure in the heart of abandoned Camp Evergreen.